Welcome to the So Social Radio Show. I'm your host, Richard Martin, along with my co-host,
Cheri-Martin, and we are the WCN Interactive Team, marketing and social media strategists, helping you to
dream it, plan it, and importantly, successfully do it.
Yes, for growth, prosperity, and success. And along with our guest experts, each Wednesday at 12 noon, we are here to share tips and techniques to grow you and your business, plus demystify social media and marketing for you so that you can have more fun.
And my favorite, more profits.
Yes, yes, yes. And we're going to kind of do a little switch on our show today. We're going to start with our guest expert, bring him on in just a second, do an official introduction, but he's only able to be with us for the first half of the show today. And we're just so honored and pleased that he's going to join us today because he is a busy guy. So let me just go ahead and do an official introduction, bring Matthew on, and then let's get started with our conversation, and we'll just take it for where it goes here. But Matthew Montoya is a national product trainer with Constant Contact, and he's been with them for over 5 years. In that time, he's traveled to 46 states to teach over 9,000 plus Constant Contact customers and partners how to better use the product. Previous to his time with Constant Contact, Matthew used Constant Contact himself as a customer for over 3 years at a nonprofit. He brings his real-world experience with the product as a customer to every presentation he gives. And we've had the pleasure of doing some learning from him and sitting in some of his trainings. But Matthew has over 15 years experience in marketing, and that's what makes him such an awesome trainer, as well as bringing his experience of marketing to this awesome Constant Contact tool. So with that, I just want to say welcome, Matthew, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for changing the schedule. I really appreciate that.
Hey, it's our honor, and you know, we just want our audience to appreciate the depth and the breadth of knowledge that you have within the email marketing arena in general and within Constant Contact in particular. But if I could start off with a question, what is so special about email marketing?
Well, you know, there's a lot of answers to that fairly simple question, Richard. I always talk to small businesses and nonprofits, especially when we're talking about email marketing, about the unique nature of their list. I always start by talking about the list. And what a small business really needs to think about is how they've collected that list. Most organizations have probably been collecting a list of email addresses for years, from customers that have come in or people that have called in or from trade shows. They've collected these contacts for years, and that list has tremendous value because the participant gave the email address in the course of doing business. They're already pre-sold, or they may already be a customer. And that's really critical because instead of chasing a potential customer, you could be actually working with somebody who knows you and has done business with you and trusts you. And what the unique nature of email marketing is that they've asked for that content. They've come to you looking for it, and so when they receive it, it's giving them what they wanted. It's a particularly powerful way to communicate. And, you know, not to diminish the role of social media, it's a very powerful tool. But email marketing and email in general, emails get more opens, more behavior than social media or any other kind, generally any other kind of marketing. And that's tremendous because if a small business thinks about their average price point, let's say that they sell something that's $5. Well, if they multiply that $5 price point times the number of email addresses on a list, that could be a gigantic number, and that could be a potential millions of dollars for a small business.
Oh, most definitely. And I know that so many individuals we speak with as far as in our workshops or clients, and they're always saying, you know, they understand the importance of this email list, but they do struggle with building it if they do not have one officially started, if they have not been accumulating emails. So what is the key to collecting those email addresses so that you do have that permission to email them?
Well, you know, that comes in a couple of different forms, but, you know, I want to super simplify it by first coaching a business to ask. They have to get in the business of asking. And, you know, that kind of dovetails right into my first answer, which is the small business needs to understand the value of the list. If they understand the potential value of the list, they'll probably be more likely to ask. And so I know that sounds really basic, but so many organizations don't teach their frontline staff to ask. And they have to ask. They have to make sure they ask in every interaction they have with a person physically. Now, one great thing about tools like Constant Contact is that we enable a small business nonprofit to ask in a digital world as well. We have tools in Constant Contact like Text to Join, where people can text their email address to join a list. We have the ability to put a request for email addresses on a website. And one thing that I always coach small business on is if somebody's visiting your website, what does that tell us about them? Well, it tells us they're interested, so why wouldn't you want to get that email address right then? We have tools that grow social media, grow email lists on social media, and more. And so that takes that concept of asking and puts it in the complete digital world for the small business as well. But I cannot emphasize enough that successful organizations get in the habit of asking every time they interact with somebody.
Oh, that's a really good tip, on that, because if you want to grow your list, common sense. You got to ask. It doesn't matter whether it's face to face through a contact form or it's in on social media. You're still getting the list and everything put together. So, but when we get to,
I want to.
Go
I'll
ahead.
point out one statistic for you, Richard. I'm sure you guys know this. Is that organizations that ask have a 50% response rate. Now, on the surface, that doesn't sound that great, 50%, but that means 50% of the audience is going to give you their email address, and that audience is tremendously valuable to a business. That email list growing is key to an organization growing.
Well, would it be fair to say that if somebody requests to join your list, there is some degree of business interest that can be assumed? Am I on the right track?
Absolutely. And in fact, I like that you use that term assumed. I think a lot of people get scared of email marketing. They're worried that it might be perceived as spam or some kind of negative thing. Well, no, actually, a successful organization, if they're going to do email marketing, all they have to have is implied permission. And implied permission is exactly what you just described, Richard. It's in the course of doing business, it's implied that if I give you my email address, you're going to send me information that I might find useful. But the organizations have to get over that fear of annoying people. It's not going to annoy people if I've asked for the information.
Oh, most definitely. And I do know, I hear from so many individuals saying, well, that's great, but when I get them, then so many leave my list. And I said, well, that's your responsibility. Now that you have their permission, they want to hear from you. So it is up to you, and it's your responsibility to find that interesting and valuable information for them. Make it client focused. Help them with solutions they're looking for. And that is the key to successful email marketing.
Absolutely. One thing that I've noticed in my interactions with, as you said, going on 10,000 small businesses I've interacted with in person, their natural inclination is to just talk about themselves. Here's what's going on in our world. Here's the products that we're carrying. Here's the news that we think you should have. And what I encourage small business to do is to try to make the email as much client-focused as you can, the end user. Give them tips, give them advice, give them education, give them things that are going to help them grow or make the world better or do whatever the mission of the organization is. But, when we do nothing but talk about ourselves in email marketing, well, then that email may not be interesting to the end user. Mm-hmm. So it's a combination of not only growing the list, but making sure that you give people information that's useful.
Well, useful information, Cheri and I have spent a lot of time putting this information together, and we do presentation and that's how we make our living, presenting, coaching, speaking, training, and those type of things. But, do I really want to give away my information?
You do to a certain extent, Richard. You don't want to give all of the information out, but you want to give enough that you'll cause interest, concern, curiosity in the receiver. And, a really valuable part of a tool like Constant Contact is that Constant Contact will tell you what people click on in an opened email. And so strategically, if I was a business and I was giving them a little bit of my knowledge, maybe let's, for instance, say I was giving them 7 tips about something. Well, I might give them 4 tips in the email and force them to click on a link to read the rest on my website or my blog and social media. And the benefit there is that I'm educating the consumer. I'm giving them some useful information. but also I'm tracking who clicked on it. And that's really valuable to a small business because then you learn what people are interested in, not just that, but also who is interested in that. And so what you can do past that point is start to collate that information about who is interested in what and start to send out even more targeted emails to those people.
You hit a nail on the head there about the fact that you can track who is clicking. And I think that is another misunderstanding or a myth that a lot of individuals or business professionals don't understand the importance of actually having an email tool such as Constant Contact. So if you would share with our audience, what is Constant Contact's niche in today's marketing arena, and why would someone want to actually use a tool like Constant Contact versus like their Gmail, AOL, etc.?
Well, that's a pretty multi-layered question. I'll go back one at a time. Our niche is helping small businesses and small nonprofits, and so we're talking about organizations that have generally about 10 employees or less. And these are organizations that probably do not have the budget to hire a marketing professional or the ability to put together a complicated marketing tools themselves. And so we're kind of a one-stop shop for a small business or small nonprofit to get their word out. We're an easy-to-use tool that anybody without a technical background or a marketing background can use to get the message out. Now, to come to the second question about Gmail, that kind of set up my red flags because one thing we definitely want to make sure small businesses don't do is do solicitation for business through tools like Gmail, Hotmail, AOL, Outlook, their own company servers, because that could cause them some problems. And the big problems that causes is that if you send out solicitation for business through a tool like Gmail, well, there's no way for people to unsubscribe to it. And that can cause a lot of problems because then the only recourse for somebody to quote-unquote unsubscribe to an email like that is mark it as spam, which could hurt the business's online reputation. Mm-hmm. And that's the number one reason why a tool like Constant Contact exists, is to protect small businesses and nonprofits by being marked as spam. Because, as I've been out there in the field, so many small businesses are worried about being marked as spam. The good news is if you use a tool like Constant Contact, it's Constant Contact that takes the hit. We are the ones marked as spam. And because we're such a large organization, we can absorb that hit. But one thing we want to make sure no one on this listening to this call, this show today, does is do solicitation for business through tools like that.
Very well said, and very important as well. So that was great information here for our listening audience.
Yeah, we before we became even knowledgeable on Constant Contact, we're with another company early on, and back in the construction days. And what happened there is there's a lot of contractors that went out of business, and our list got beat up. So we're sending out a list, and 40-50% of the list had gone out of business, so they were not deliverable, and we got blocked. Period.
Let's just say that's why we came to Constant Contact, and why we are we're partners and certified with them, is because they are just a tremendous company to work with customer support, and they really did help and work with us on cleaning up that list so that we would not get blacklisted. So,
well, I always feel funny talking about this because it's a little inside baseball. Obviously I'm an employee of Constant Contact and I adore the company I work for. But one thing folks have to understand is if you've not tried Constant Contact, we are most well known not for our easy-to-use tool and not for the high deliverability rate of our product, which is about 99.9% of the emails we send out do get delivered, which is better than our competition. But it's our customer service. Our customer service is what people keep coming back for, why they stay with us as long as they do. People will leave and then come back just because our customer support is so fantastic. We understand that most organizations that might use a tool like us are not marketers or may not be in the technology sector. And our customer support is so fantastic because, one, it's free. Two, it's U.S.-based. We do not outsource our customer support. And three, our folks are trained not only to help with the product and the technical stuff, but they're also trained to help with marketing. So organizations that are struggling for, let's say, a perfect subject line, well, we have folks that can help them do that.
Love it.
And what's the purpose of having that magnificent subject